and you know, it was phone check, so I had to whoop some asses. You know how it is in jail. You know how it is in the joint, right? I'm playing. How you doing, Freedom, Peace, and Peckerwood Book? Okay. Oh, Peckerwood Book. Oh, Facebook. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I was like, is that your Twitter name, Peckerwood Book? Phone check, pump. Right. Should we go to Black Spot? Yes, Black Spot, BLAQSPOT. Um, that's where I'm hanging out more. I love Black Spot. BLAQ. Make sure you don't forget the Q. The sister says it's her first time watching me on Periscope. Good. Well, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. This will be different and better than any Periscope you have anywhere else. I don't know why there aren't more people trying to teach black people online, because the internet is a huge opportunity to create the greatest classroom in the history of the world. But I guess people are too busy taking booty shots and selfies and talking about, Soldier Boy boxing with Chris Brown. Y'all see that stuff? Soldier Boy and Chris Brown having a boxing match, really? Like, what's that? Like the battle of the skinny dudes, right? With oversized egos. But just for the record, I put my money on Chris. Anyway, but in all seriousness, though, I mean, so it's interesting. I mean, it gives us a segue to talk about business, right? So apparently Floyd Mayweather's promotions company is making a business decision. They see people getting given a lot of attention, so they're like, okay, let's let these two dudes box it out, whether the beef is real or not real. Celebrity beef, entertainer beef sells records. It makes money. So they may have created the beef out of nowhere, or they're definitely maintaining the beef. They're trying to make money from the beef. But one thing I think, though, honestly, from a business standpoint, is that why let these dudes have a boxing match? They can't box. They're not boxers. And boxing can be boring if you do it the right way. Why not let them just fight? Like not even cage fighting or UFC type. I mean, just like a street fight. Like that would be interesting, right? Soldier Boy and Chris Brown in a street fight. But again, I put my money on Chris just because I watched both of these guys grow up through the years, and I feel like Chris is a more adaptable person. Like I feel like Chris. I know y'all probably like, why the hell is he talking about Soldier Boy and Chris Brown? Because it's interesting, right? Because I watch the same media y'all watch, and just since we're talking about it, and I analyze everything, I think Chris Brown is a more adaptable human being. Like I've seen Chris in a lot of different environments. I feel like Chris adjusts to his environment very well. I saw one time he got in a dance contest with some random guy that just walked up and said, "I want to dance against you." So Chris took him on and kicked his butt. Then another time I saw Chris playing basketball. He was part of the N1 mixtape thing. And he was playing with guys that are like really good basketball players and was holding his own, And you're thinking, how could a celebrity have time to get that good at basketball? And I really think it's because Chris Brown honestly is a genius. He's not, I mean, it's unfortunate though, because black people, we have a lot of geniuses in our community that are used up in the like entertainment industry and stuff like that. But really, they could be doing anything. They could be, if he wasn't pulled into entertainment, he might have been a rocket scientist or an attorney or a doctor or a professor. So anyway, enough of that. Enough Chris Brown, Soldier Boy. Y'all ain't trying to talk about that stuff. I was thinking about this stuff with Obama, and I was just kind of, curiously watching this whole like love fest that's going on as the Obamas are leaving office, and people are really, really, really emotional about it. To the point where they're begging him not to leave, and they, we love you, and you're the greatest ever, and I didn't know how to. I was thinking about, well, should I say something? And I realized, I said, Boyce, it's not a good idea for you to talk about this because black folks are so emotional. They get mad when you are not as emotional as they are, like when you are not as enamored as other people are. Because I tend to just look at facts. I tend to look at things in a rational context, and that doesn't work well when you talk about people where the majority of us go to church and will give our money to a thieving pastor who's screwing half the congregation, and we don't care because we feel like he's Jesus or he's connected to Jesus or whatever. And so, but sometimes being honest means telling the truth, even if you know that people aren't going to like it. When it comes to Obama, my position has always been very basic. I don't get excited about any politician. It's almost like when they tell you when you go buy a car and they say don't get excited about that car, because as soon as the car dealer sees that you're excited, he's going to play with you. He's going to manipulate you, right? So even if you like the car, you just say, I don't know. I don't know if I really want that car, because then you'll get a good price. But when you fall in love with the car and you tell him you're in love with the car, then you're going to end up getting screwed, because he's going to say, oh, well, I got this person. I ain't got to do nothing for him because I already got him. And so when it came to Obama, my first introduction to Obama was '05 when I just finished my book, What If George Bush Were a Black Man? And a guy from Milwaukee, he was a good brother. He actually has passed now. He was a radio show host in Milwaukee. I can't remember his name though. But he said, yeah, there's a senator in Chicago that everybody's excited about by the name of Barack Obama. I said, what? I didn't know the name. The name was hard for me to memorize because it was such a unique name. And I saw the excitement grow, and I would get asked about him on CNN and stuff like that. And I was supportive, very supportive. I mean, my feeling was, I said, this was back when black people were not really supporting him. Hillary Clinton had the majority of the vote from the black community, but Obama was gaining. And they were asking, should Hillary Clinton be worried about Barack Obama? And I said, absolutely. I said, I think this guy can win. I said, I think that he is he's very charismatic. He's very smart. I think black people were looking for a person with brown skin. Hillary Clinton, her husband, was always called the first black president, but he wasn't the first black president. He was a white president. He was a 42nd white president, whatever number he was. He was not a black president. And in fact, it's insulting that you consider him to be the black president. The fact that you called Bill Clinton the first black president really is a reflection of the low self-esteem issue that Dr. Claude Anderson, I was reading this book, Black Labor, White Wealth, on the plane. And, as you know, I love this book. I pretty much meditate on this book. I read pages over and over again. And one thing he talked about is that for hundreds of years, black people have been conditioned to pretty much take anything that white people give to them. Like we're conditioned to look to our masters to give us access to our happiness. And then when they give us like little crumbs, we're like, thank you, Master. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you so much, because our self-esteem is so low, and it's just real. So anyway, with Hillary and Bill, they were sort of the crumbs that were dropped to you by racist society, and you ate that up because you had never had anything that was even worth digesting. So so when Obama comes along, that's like another step up, right? Now he's actually got black skin. He's got a beautiful black wife and these beautiful kids. And over time, black people started to really love him. But that did not happen overnight. If you recall, it happened because there was a strategic effort. There was a meeting, a secret meeting in a hotel with him, Cornel West, David Axelrod, I think Jesse Jackson Jr., and some other people. And they sat around for hours in this hotel room, and they said, how are we going to get black people to support Obama? Because they're not voting for him. They're not supporting him. So basically, there's kind of like a blueprint on what it takes to get black people to love you. It's like basically, black people don't vote on issues. They don't vote on logic. They vote on emotion. They vote on swag. They vote on all these other factors. So basically, it's a matter of kind of knowing what button to push to get black people to vote for you. And it's a problem because, again, as Dr. Anderson talks about this in his book, which everybody should read. Every black person needs to read this book. He says that we have become trained to look for unhealthy cues to decide who our favorite leaders are going to be. We would rather cheer for somebody in a nice suit who gives a fancy speech than somebody who actually has a true vision and a real quality to their leadership that's truly impactful, right? So for black people, flash always wins over substance. Flash wins over substance. Also, there's studies that show that we worship celebrities more than other people do. We love our celebrities. So basically, in fact, the Nielsen people that do the Nielsen ratings, they literally put in documentation. Black people will buy a product if a celebrity endorses it. White people will not. They said white people do not care if a celebrity likes a certain laundry detergent, but they said black people, because they're looking for any hero they can find, and they tend to grab heroes that are in the media, they will buy laundry detergent because Kerry Washington said buy this Tide or whatever. So corporations know this, so they know kind of how to play the black community like a fiddle. So they basically, he went out there and he campaigned out. Black people started to support him. Now, mind you, I was supporting him before black people actually jumped on board. I said, well, I don't really like politicians, but he's better than the rest of them piece of shit people. So I'll vote for him. I mean, I think he's cool. I think he's better than the rest. But then black people eventually started getting on board when white supremacy kind of gave them permission to support Obama. When they started to feel that white people were going to support him and that they weren't wasting a vote by leaving Hillary, then black people started going to Obama in droves. Because, again, the lack of confidence means that we don't have a lot of people that are willing to kind of be leaders, to jump out front and do something nobody else is doing. We tend to kind of go with the bandwagon effect, right? That's how you see trends on social media where everybody's like, why is everybody doing the such and such challenge? Well, everybody's doing it because everybody's doing it. You understand what I'm saying? So really, if you convince people that everybody's doing something, a lot of people will get on board just because everybody's doing it, not because it really makes sense. So long story short, it suddenly became cool, to support Obama. He becomes the man. He gets pushed into the White House, and my whole position was flat the whole time. A lot of people went from not liking him to liking him more and more and more and loving him, and damn near worshiping him. I was like this. I was just like this the whole time. And so I paid attention to policies. I said, okay, he's in office right now, but unfortunately, for many powerful black people, and Dr. Claude Anderson talks about this, he breaks black people into categories. You've got what he would call the assimilationists, the people that really feel that black empowerment will come through being adopted by white society through integration. And then you've got those who think differently, right? I'm in the second category. I'm not a believer that white folks are ever truly going to make room for all of us. They're not. They're going to make room for the best of us. They're going to make room for they're going to skim the cream off the top and leave the masses. They're like, we don't really want all the niggas in the building. We just want a couple. We want a couple tokens, and we want your most talented. We want to take the best and leave y'all with the rest, which hurts the community. So Obama ran, and he did well. He ran a brilliant campaign, was very, very disciplined. I was really impressed with that because Hillary Clinton pushed his buttons. The racism started with Clinton, and then it continued with the Republicans. And we know all of that, right? We saw what happened over the 8 years. What concerned me, though, was now I saw stuff y'all did not see. I was behind the scenes. I was right next to Al Sharpton as Sharpton was being pulled into the White House. I was being pulled in too. I mean, again, I was going to Sharpton's radio show. Me and him would sit there for 6 hours talking about politics, talking about the Obamas, talking about everything going on that the public did not see. And I didn't like what I was hearing because I got this feeling that there were elite black people who were going to get the hookup, but that basically they were going to get the hookup in exchange for their unconditional loyalty to people like Valerie Jarrett, who's one of Obama's senior advisors, who I personally felt never gave a shit about poor black people. Valerie, to me, based on what I've seen, she's kind of part of this really elite, class of black people in Chicago, some of whom care nothing about poor black people. They look at the violence on the South Side. They're like, man, why are those niggas killing each other? Right? They look at poor people. They don't care nothing about that. They don't care about unemployed people. They don't get none of that. A lot of them. I'm not talking about all of them, but a lot of them. And so Valerie, to me, never came off as a person that cared about protecting the black community. She cared about protecting Barack. And part of protecting Barack, for her, in my opinion, came down to protecting him from black people who would actually ask for accountability. So if black people asked for a meeting, Valerie would block the meeting, or she would delay the meeting. Delay. It took years before the Congressional Black Caucus could even get a sit down with Obama. And this was during one of the worst black unemployment crises in American history. And it wasn't that Obama himself was blocking all this. I think Valerie was blocking it, and Obama was giving her permission to do that, right? Letting her be the bad guy. And so all through that time, I'm looking at the data. I'm an economist. I'm an analyst. I analyze the numbers. White folks were doing better after the economic crash. They started slowly improving because there was effort being put into getting jobs for them. There was money being put into their industries. There was the resources. There was a lot of work being done to make sure white unemployment only got so high. Black unemployment, they didn't touch because they said it doesn't matter if you're giving black people substance. All you have to do is give them something emotional. Just like you don't have to feed a crackhead, because as long as he got his pipe, he ain't never going to be all that hungry. And that's what it was. They were feeding you with an emotional crack pipe so that you would not pay attention to the fact that you were hungry. Crackheads can go days without eating because they just need their drug. They just need to take a puff, take a whiff. And that's what they would feed you. They fed you nothing but flash, but very little substance. And so what would happen? I'm just being real here. Now, I'm sorry if I'm hurting your feelings because, I'm real intrigued with the degree of emotional attachment people have, toward their president. And I think that there's a way you can love him, but hold him accountable, just like your son, your husband, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, whatever. There is a way to say, I love you, but I also love me. I care about your well-being, but I also care about these other people over here. I care about my community, and I care about my community a little more than I care about you. Not because I don't care about you, but because what happens to all of us should matter more than what happens to one or two of us. And I think a lot of us let that go. We got into this almost an aristocracy kind of mindset where we felt as no matter how bad things are for us, no matter how much hell we're going through, you don't touch the royal family. You do not mess with King Barack and Queen Michelle and Princess Sasha and Malia. You don't touch that. We will all die on the street and starve to death before we let you mess with our sacred cow, because that's all we got. All we got is hope. This is not disconnected from history. For many, many hundreds of years, again, Dr. Claude Anderson talked about in his book, Black Labor, White Wealth. He said that he talked about the church, for example, and he was talking about how the white churches would teach white people that they were superior to black people. And the black pastors were teaching black people that their only salvation was to please white people and to remain meek and humble and quiet, right? So when Obama gets into the White House, your approach is not, let's get in there, let's raise some hell, let's make some things happen. Your approach is, let's be meek and humble and quiet, and maybe if we're good, then something good is going to happen for us, right? And so politicians know this. They know they can play with your emotions. They know that if a politician goes out in public and sings an Al Green song, you're gonna love it. If they can do the Fetty Wap or whatever, some kind of dance, you're gonna love that, or the electric slide or whatever, you're gonna love that. They know that they appear on the cover of Essence magazine. You're gonna love that. They give each other a fist bump in public. They know you're gonna love that. Like, politicians are good at kind of playing it up. And what happens with black folks is that you get treated differently from almost any other group. There's almost no other group where they feel that comfortable manipulating their emotions with nothing but symbolism. Like, of course, they're going to do symbolism with everybody, but there are some groups where they say, okay, it's very, like, I'm Jewish. Yeah, it's very nice that you're wearing your yarmulke today, but what are you really doing for the Jewish community? I'm not going to believe that you're one of us just because you look like us. I need to hear your policy. I need to hear what you're actually doing specifically for us. So what happened during the Obama presidency is you got what the New York Times referred to as trickle-down liberalism. Trickle-down liberalism is where liberals say, this is the stuff we already want to do anyway. We're already going to do stuff for the environment. We already have certain beliefs when it comes to gay rights or religion or maybe feminism or whatever. And we're not going to change anything for black people. We're not going to do anything for black people specifically. What we're going to do is take what we're already doing and convince black people that it's good for them too. That's what they did. So they would say, so you would go to them, and it started with the beginning of the Obama presidency. April Taylor, I think it was her name, April Ryan, that's what it was. She asked the president, she said, look, black unemployment is incredibly high. It's higher. Like, if white people had that level of unemployment, they would literally be rioting in the streets. They'd be trying to get the president impeached if they had to deal with unemployment as high as we deal with. And she said, so do you have specific policies to deal with this, with this racial gap? And remember, he said the rising tide will lift all boats. And what does that mean? That means that, look, if I help everybody, it's going to trickle down to black people too. Well, that doesn't work. That's, just like Reagan used to use what they call trickle-down economics, except he used it for the rich. He would say, if we help rich people, it'll trickle down to the working class and to the poor. That doesn't work because rich people don't give their money away. They don't give their money and their power away. That's how they got rich. So basically, from the very beginning, the Obama doctrine for black people was, I'm not really going to deal with race in a substantive way. And so what makes it a beautiful strategy for him, I would have probably done the same thing if I didn't care anything about black people. If all I want to do is stay in office and protect my legacy, then that's exactly what I would have done. But that's why I'm not president. That's why I wouldn't. If I was president, they'd probably get me out of there real quick. What he did was he pretty much knew that he could still get the support of the black masses by picking a couple of chosen handpicked Negroes. He grabbed Al Sharpton, took good care of him. Sharpton's probably doing pretty well financially because of this. He froze out black people that were going to be critical, those who were going to ask the hard questions. Dr. Claude Anderson, one of the greatest economic minds in the history of the world, was never called, to my knowledge, ever called by the Obama administration to sit down and talk about the problem for black people in the economy or the problem with black unemployment. He was never called because he was actually going to ask questions. He was actually going to represent black people in an authentic way. Sharpton was called regularly because Sharpton was a yes man for the Obama administration. How do you think Sharpton got that job with MSNBC? I saw him get that job. He introduced me to the president of MSNBC. I really strongly believe, maybe I'm speculating here, but I really think that, again, there were only two scholars hanging out with Sharpton a lot, and that was me and Melissa Harris Perry. I really personally think that there was consideration that maybe he could do the job that Melissa had, right, until they got rid of her, right? The problem is I don't play ball like that. I just can't. I don't. And again, don't think I'm speculating on that or too much, or don't think I want that job. I don't want a job on MSNBC. So if you're listening from here, don't ever call me and hire me for none of that. I don't want none of that because I don't want. I have learned from people like Dr. Claude Anderson through the years over the flaws of the thinking that we're raised on. We are raised to heavily depend on this idea, this false idea that integration is going to be the key to our freedom and salvation. And what you don't understand is that when you do that, when you're deeply committed to that idea, you're moving in with the devil, and and I'm talking about the devil in terms of the energy. I'm not talking about the white man, every white man's the devil. I'm not saying that, but that system of white supremacy is the devil, and it's 400 years old. And you're moving into a hellish situation where you're going to have nothing but stress, nothing but pressure, nothing but heartache, nothing but frustration, nothing but anger, because every time you're trying to get them to treat you fairly, they treat you unfairly, and you don't know why. You're mad about it. You're complaining about it. I saw an episode on Blackish the other day where Anthony Anderson gave this speech about how black people have dealt with the worst of everything, and we've just gone through hell. We've lived in neighborhoods you won't even drive through. We've had jobs that are worse than your worst nightmares, and it's always been bad for us. And my feeling is, fuck that shit. I don't want it to always be bad for us. Maybe at some point you got to reconsider your strategy, man. Seriously, stop feeling sorry for yourself. But again, it ain't your fault. It ain't your fault. You were trained to be that way. I can't find it. I need to find it. I wish I could find it. I should have highlighted this, because one thing that Dr. Anderson mentioned in the book, Black Labor, White Wealth, is he mentioned a point where the goal of policy, they had policy in place where their only objective was to keep black people helpless, passive, powerless, and non-competitive, uncompetitive. But they wanted them to be a disciplined labor force. They wanted them to work hard, but they want them to be powerless and non-competitive. And so when you sit around and all you're doing is whining about how bad it is, and you keep on loving America despite the fact that America keeps shitting on you every step of the way, that's pretty much you saying, I am helpless and powerless and passive, and I'm just going to sit here and pray and hope that one day you're going to come through and help me out. That's what you're saying. What do you really gain by giving some sort of teary-eyed speech about how hard it is for you, and you keep loving America and contributing to America despite the fact that America is giving nothing to you? It doesn't mean that we can't consider this country to be partially ours, but it's not logical to think this way. Let me see here. Oh, I wish I could find it. Here we go. Here. Oh, wow. Perfect. See, it's an act of God that I happen to find this. By the way, I have this book, Black Labor, White Wealth. It's actually part of the Dr. Boyce Library. If you want to see a list of books that I recommend, you can go to thedrboycelibrary.com. That's thedrboycelibrary.com. And also, don't forget, we have our other programs like our stock market investing class, stuff like that. Write this down. You can go to blackfinancialliteracy.com. That's blackfinancialliteracy.com. Listen to this. He says, the Maryland colony's original edict was expanded into a public policy on blacks, stipulating that, quote, black people shall constitute an available, uncompensated, non-competitive, well-disciplined, permanently subordinated workforce, which shall be separated from white society. Non-competitive, well-disciplined, permanently subordinated. So effectively, they've had laws in place for a very long time that said we want black people around, but we don't want black people really competing with white people. We don't want black people thinking that they're equal to us. And so this went on for hundreds of years. So a lot of what you see in America, when you see when you see the inequities and you see the imbalances and you see that they're living good and you're living bad, or they're going to good schools, you're going to crappy schools, or they got great jobs and you can't get a job, they're living free and happy, your people are in prison. That's by design. Oh, that's by design. It's by design. And the only way to overcome a system that corrupt is to build another system that's better. You have to go into this thinking on a level of independence, because if you don't, then you're going to go in with a heavy degree of codependence, right? And codependence doesn't lead to strength. What it does is it leads to you feeling powerless and vulnerable and upset, and you whine and moan and complain, and white people just look at you like you're crazy. They look at you and they laugh at you because they're like, well, why don't you do something about it? Because when we are being mistreated, we stand up for ourselves. We actually fight back. When we thought Osama bombed us, we went and killed his ass. But black folks, you can't talk about going to kill nobody or fighting back or being competitive or whatever, because you're seen as hostile. In fact, there's a part in the book where I need to start highlighting these things before I start talking in the live stream, because there was a point where Dr. Anderson talked about how the doctrine of white supremacy was built on this idea that they would reward black people who support the system, who assimilate, and they would punish and marginalize any black person who was either overly critical or ask too many questions. They would label him as hostile or whatever. They would discredit that person, and they would do that in media. And they did that up until now. The only reason they haven't done that to me entirely is because I try my best not to depend on certain people to be able to get my message out. Even with Facebook, I mean, you guys saw this week where I had crazy issues with Facebook, where Facebook banned me again, not because I'm cussing, not because I'm putting naked pictures up or whatever, saying I hate anybody, but because I'm educating black people. So there are people who don't want you educated. So what they're doing is that there are people that are just going in and reporting everything I put up. And Facebook has a bot where anything that gets reported, pretty much, I guess a lot of the stuff just gets banned automatically. They don't even ask any questions. We email them, they're not responding, but we had to have backup protocols in place. That's why I'm talking to you on Twitter or whatever, or YouTube, because we have backups. We have backups on top of backups. So they can't really shut us down, largely because I knew at some point, if I had enough impact on black people, if I was teaching black people something that would truly make them strong, then I remember something I learned from Kentucky a long time ago, that the hit dog always hollers. That's it. The hit dog always hollers. So, the thing about being competitive minded means you must know from the very beginning that the minute you start to truly become competitive, that your adversary is going to respond. They're going to respond. So one thing I never want to hear from a black person is, well, it seems like every time we start coming together and start pooling our money and start educating each other and trying to lift our community, they just get mad. They just get mad because every time we do this, they mad. Yeah, they're going to get mad. Yes, they're going to get mad. Because when you shift the hierarchy, then people are going to feel upset because you're taking away something they feel entitled to. You can never play in a championship football game and not expect the other team to get mad when you scoring touchdowns. You don't think Alabama wasn't mad when Clemson scored that touchdown in the last 2 seconds of the game? Hell yeah, they're still mad. And they did everything in their power to stop that touchdown from happening. So if you sit there and you feel sorry, well, gosh, every time we score a touchdown, they just come back and they score another touchdown. Every time we get the ball, they just try to take it. How stupid would that look? How dumb would they look at that if that was their mindset? No, they just said, well, man, they're playing hard because they don't want to lose, so we've got to play harder. We got to keep going, right? So my point in all this is to say that black people, you got to raise your kids and raise your mind to understand that you're not in a pretty game. You're not in a game where anybody's ever going to be happy for you because you're doing well, because you're doing better for yourself. They're gonna get madder at you. It reminds me of one time I saw this guy who used to get beat up by his baby brother when he was a kid, And his baby brother used to bully him and always take charge, always told him what to do. And one day he said, man, to hell with this. I ain't got to do what this dude tells me to do. And no, you can't have my lunch money or whatever. So he stood up to him. And so, of course, that's going to lead to a reaction. Like, oh, what, you trying to buck up on me? Oh, hell no. So he got to whooping that ass, right? So at that situation, he had a choice. He could either fold back into subordination to protect himself out of fear, or he could fight back, and he chose to fight back, and he fought like hell. And the fight, I don't think he won the fight, but it was like a 50-50 kind of fight. And you know what happened? The next day, his brother treated him differently because he realized that his little brother wasn't no punk no more. You see, so black people, when you stand up for yourself, you're going to have people fighting back with you. You're going to have people that are going to be like, oh, no, wait a minute. No, we're used to black people being in second place, not taking the lead. We're used to them being in the back of the bus, not trying to drive the bus. And we certainly ain't used to them trying to own the bus. They're going to fight you tooth and nail every step of the way. But if you fight back, people will just respect you just for fighting back, just for standing up for yourself, just for loving yourself. Because it ain't about people loving you. It's about people respecting you. And right now you have no respect and it's not your fault. The reason is because for 400 years you've been taught to be very passive and very meek. You're more likely to ask Jesus to help you overcome white supremacy than you are to actually stand up and fight white supremacy, right? You're more likely to aim for assimilation and sort of peaceful coordination with white America as opposed to standing up against the inequities that exist in white America. That's why most black celebrities, you can't point to hardly any black celebrities in mainstream media who are truly outspoken about racism. I'm talking about truly 100% honest. You'll see people that'll do charitable work in the black community because charity don't make nobody mad, right? You'll see people that might, join a trend. Like if it's Black Lives Matter, they might do a little bit, but they're really not going to do too much because it's going to undermine the rewards that they're receiving from the white supremacist system. White supremacist systems only reward people who support white supremacy. If you're truly fighting against white supremacy, there's a good chance that the system will boot you out. So at that point, here I want you to think about this. So the question is, what's a better skill to give your child? Is it to teach them how to survive within a white supremacist system, or is it to teach them how to build their own systems? Is it better to teach them how to receive opportunities given to them by other people, or is it better to teach them where opportunities come from and how to create those opportunities? Again, it's not your fault that you don't know these things because going all the way back through slavery, you were trained, and I read this earlier, to be a reliable and well-disciplined, non-competitive, readily available workforce. So for many of us, for hundreds of years, we've been trained to believe that if we want to get some money, if we want to survive, we must go and back to the massa. No matter how much he done spit on you, shit on you, talk shit about you, cussed you out, talked about you like a dog, came through with the police and shot down your own kids, no matter how badly they treated you, you are trained to go back to those very same people and beg them to pay your bills and beg them to take care of you. And you show up with your hat in your hand and you hope that if you are well behaved, that they won't mistreat you today. And because you're accustomed to that, that's why you get happy when they just throw you a couple of crumbs. That's why you get excited when they give you a little job, even if the job ain't nothing, even if it's a job that he wouldn't do himself. You're happy about that because you're not used to having nothing, because you ain't been taught to go out and get nothing. So what I will say is that what we got to do as black people is teach our kids how to go out there and get it. You got to go out there and get it. You never benefit. You will never, ever benefit in life. You will never, ever accomplish anything in life if you are squarely convinced that you have no ability to shape your outcome. When you believe you have no ability to shape your own outcome, then that gives you an excuse to give up. It gives you an excuse to be lazy. So what I realized, and I was mentioning this, I was in LAX the other day, and I was thinking about this in the airport, and I said, it's very interesting how I have seen people, very passive, lazy people who are not utilizing their resources. The only time they become aggressive is when they are defending their right to be passive, when they're defending their right to be hopeless. Now, what does that mean? Well, have you ever seen that where somebody just gets mad because they got a problem and they swear that their problem can't be fixed, and you propose a solution, and they're like, no, that ain't gonna work. And you're like, well, why don't you try this? Did you try to take the bus over to some? No, the bus, it's too hot outside. That bus don't never show up. Okay, well, I mean, did you think about giving your cousin gas money so you can go out and get a job? No, because he always be tripping, and gas money, gas is expensive. I can't pay for no gas, right? What do? They're getting aggressive because you're shifting the paradigm. You're saying to them, you're not hopeless. You're not helpless. You can actually do this. You can actually get something done. You can actually make progress in your life. And what they're doing is the same passive, lazy, shiftless ass son of a bitch is getting pissed at you because you're giving them an avenue of possibility. Right? Well, because possibility means that they can actually do some work and make something happen, and they don't want to do any work. So a very passive, meek, lazy person will only become diligent when it comes to them defending their right to continue to be lazy. When people are living off of an excuse, that excuse is like food for their soul, their damaged soul. They need the excuses in order for them to just sort of live and be comfortable in the depths of their own despair. So when you come to them and you say, here's a solution, why don't we do this? Black people, we can actually build some wealth if we save $5 a day. People will fight like hell. People get mad at me. And I'm like, wait, why are you mad at me because I'm giving you a solution? I know what it is. You want me to tell you that there's no solution so that you can keep on giving your goddamn money away to fucking Walmart and Target and Nike and Kmart, and because you don't think you can ever build anything. You think that you're too helpless to actually have anything. So as long as that's true, then you can engage in irresponsible behavior without any form of accountability. Well, no, damn it, I'm going to give you some accountability. I showed my students, for example, in my class, I showed it to a lot of people. I said, look, do you know mathematically, did you know that if you were to invest, if you in 1992 had invested $5 a day every day and did that for 20 years, did you know you'd have over $100,000 now? Did you know if you did that for 30 years, you and your kids would have almost $300,000, of which about $226,000 of that money would actually be interest money that grows on top of your money? Did you know that? Right? So when I say that, though, I have to fight against the people that are conditioned to accept this idea that black people cannot change our condition. I reject that entirely. Don't come to me talking that shit about us not ever being able to do anything for ourselves. I don't believe it. Not because it can't be true. Not because it's not true, but because it does not benefit me as a man to believe that I can do nothing to change my condition. There is no, even when you can't change your condition, when you start believing there's nothing you can do, then what's going to happen is you're not even going to try. But if you believe that you can fix it, even if you can't, even if there is no solution, but you believe that there is, then what are you going to do? You're going to work at it. You're going to figure it out. You're going to look at the problem over and over again. You're going to talk to people. You're going to gather your resources. You will grow and become a better and stronger human being because you're fighting to improve your condition. You're fighting so hard that you grow in the process. So even if you don't get what you came for, you're going to be better than what you were before you started the whole process in the first place. Do you understand what I'm saying? Is this making any sense? I hope that this is sinking in because I'm trying to explain it to you in a way that makes sense. You can do this. Don't go through life believing that you can't, that there's nothing you can do. Fuck that shit. I mean, excuse my French, but no. You can do something. You can try to do something. You ain't got two nickels to rub together? Well, get your homeboy and you got a nickel, he got a nickel. Now you got two nickels. If I get four of your friends, now you got a quarter. Really, like there is always a way to improve the situation. You may not get to the destination, but you will move forward. And that's the only thing you can do sometimes. Sometimes all you can do is move forward. Even if you can't get to the finish line, at least you can move forward. But just because you can't make this finish line don't mean that you're supposed to sit still. And it sure as hell don't mean you're supposed to go backwards. And that's what we get. We get Negroes that run backwards because they say that the finish line is too damn far away. No, don't go backwards. Don't sit still. Start running. Run halfway. Run. If you can't run 5 miles an hour, run 1 mile an hour. But at least you're moving forward. It's about living on a philosophy. I'm going to tell you this. I've never really been a huge fan. I don't know Michael Jordan personally, but I've never been a huge fan of him. I just, whatever. But I'm going to tell you one thing I saw, but one thing you have to admit about Mike is that the man is a hell of a basketball player. He was a great athlete, greatest basketball player of all time. We know this, right? And one thing I read in his book, and I have to give him credit for this because he deserves credit for this. And one thing he said is that his key to being a great basketball player was that he didn't live his life based on specific events. One event didn't make him work harder or less hard. He said he lived his life based on a philosophy. His philosophy was that whatever everybody else is doing, I'm going to do more. Wait, if everybody else is practicing 3 hours a day, I'm gonna practice 6. If everybody else is practicing 4 days a week, 5 days a week, I'm gonna practice 7. Right? And that's what I believe. You have to live your life on a philosophy and not based on sort of this sort of reactionary mechanism where you're reacting to what you think the possibilities are or what opportunities you think somebody gave you, right? And that means that, if you are a hardworking person, then be hardworking all the time, even when stuff ain't going your way. If you're an intelligent person, then be intelligent. You can't go to college when you got information on your cell phone. If you are a wealth builder, then build wealth, whether you're rubbing together $2 million at a time or you're doing $2 deals at a time. Be a wealth builder all the time. That should be your core philosophy. If you're a good person, don't just be a good person when people are good to you. Be a good person all the time. You understand? So that's the idea. That's the idea. Because again, it ain't our fault. But remember, we've been conditioned for 400 years to be helpless and hopeless and to believe that we can't build anything, we can't do anything, and there's no benefit to being hopeless. Hopelessness gives you nothing except more despair. Because any hope that might have existed, you're going to kill all of that because you don't even know that it's there. You're not looking for the hope anymore. You're not looking for the avenue. You're not looking for the solution. And so therefore, things you don't look for are things you don't find. You're going to find more despair because that's what you're looking for, because that's all you believe that exists. All right. I'm going to go. I got a meeting with a brother from the taxappusa.com. Actually, the taxappusa.com. They actually are one of the people that helps us to do this podcast. And I hope you guys would do me a small favor and go download or check out the taxappusa.com because they're actually giving away a free iPad every single week. So that might be a reason to check them out. Also, they allow you to do your taxes on your cell phone. So if you're waiting on that tax refund, which you're going to invest, which you're going to put into something good, you're not going to go run to the mall and give it away to white folks. You're going to invest that money. Check out thetaxappusa.com. And they can let you do your taxes right on board. Also, don't forget to please share this if you haven't shared it so far. And also, don't forget that we also have our stock market investing program and other things. I'm a pretty good teacher. I like to think that I am. And the students love the program. And so you can check it out. Go to blackfinancialliteracy.com. That's blackfinancialliteracy.com. So again, if you want to help us achieve these goals, we don't want donations. We don't accept charity. I don't want you want your charity. I want you to hear me out and be willing to learn. So when you are picking up your dollar bills and you think about where to spend your money, and you're trying to get education or whatever, consider the blackbusinessschool.com. That's what I ask you to do is consider us because we really do care about you. All right. So I'm out of here, guys. I love you and I hope you have an awesome day. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care. Peace.